Renegade Broadcasting.
Everybody. Happy December 20th. 5 days away from Jesus Day. We're going to be talking a little bit about Mr. Jesus. Perfect timing for the show. Again, I really didn't plan it this way. Just how it worked out, but I'm glad it's working out this way. We're going to be the ultimate Grinch when we talk about Jesus here in a little bit. I don't know if I'll get to it tonight or if it'll have to carry over into tomorrow. Depends how much rambling I do tonight. But in the last segment of this set of notes, I talk about the great Jesus as, the son of Satan, literally. Since he's the son of the Yah monster, and the Yah monster is Satan himself, then he would have to be the son of Satan, wouldn't he? He would have to be Satan Jr., and he is, as we will see. Oh, when you learn to step outside the cozy, rosy little fantasy world that's been painted for you and clear your head and then take a fresh look at the picture that has been painted for you with all rosy colors. Once you take off that broken pair of glasses and put on the right prescription, unbroken prescription set of lenses, you see things completely different. Quite the opposite, in fact, of how you once saw them. That is to say, you finally see things for what they really are instead of the way they've been falsely portrayed for you. Anyway, just to recap a little bit here, we were talking, we ended off on Thursday talking about many of the comparisons between Yahweh and Satan, how the parallels are striking. Attributes, activities attributed to Satan are all applied to Yahweh himself in the Bible. Here's another one. We already mentioned, that Satan is said to be a roaring lion, walking about whom he may devour. I read a passage last week talking about Yahweh being a lion, but here's another one I forgot to mention. Hosea 13:8. It says, like a bear robbed of her cubs, this is supposed to be Yahweh talking here, I will attack them, your enemies, and rip them open like a lion. I will devour them. A wild animal will tear them apart. So there you go. I will be like a lion, he's telling his chosen ones here. Anybody who messes with you, I will be a lion who will devour them. What did Peter say? Satan is a roaring lion walking about, seeking whom he may devour. Now we see here that indeed Yahweh is a lion, a devouring lion. Very interesting, these parallels. Also mentioned on Thursday last week, how Satan is said to be a master of disguises in the New Testament. Paul, for example, wrote in 2 Corinthians 11, verse 14, Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light, tends to be an angel of light. By the way, before I continue, I wanted to thank, a listener who sent a contribution. I already sent them a thank you in an email. But somebody sent me a book, too, and I forget what their mailing address was. I get so many emails, I just can't keep track of them. But so I wanted to say thanks on air. I did get the book. I haven't started to read it yet, but I did get the book, so I wanted to say thank you. You know who you are. I just can't keep track of everybody's email, and it just gets overwhelming sometimes. But anyway, just wanted to say thanks on air. So, okay, so Paul says that Satan can transform himself as an angel of light, right? Is this the kind of game that Yahweh plays? Well, we've already discussed several passages, and over the years, I've cited numerous others of Yahweh being, an evil bastard in the Old Testament, commanding the murder of, or the mass murder of all the inhabitants of this, that, and the other city. That's something a devil would do. But yet, there are some instances where Yahweh is portrayed as loving and benevolent and kind. And so already, you can see that applies to him, right? He's a devil who wears a disguise, who wears a mask. Just like what Paul says of Satan himself, the same could be said of Yahweh. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing, if you will. He plays this same masquerading game. But let's look at some more specific examples of him doing this. In fact, we're going to look at some interesting contrasts here. First, we'll look at the sheep clothing that Yah likes to wear. For example, in James 5:11, James says, "The Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy." Oh, how delightful! And this is what Christians focus on. This is only what Christians focus on. They'll take, a passage like that. A pastor will preach a whole sermon based around that one verse, and he'll elaborate on it, and everybody will ooh and ah and amen and hallelujah all the way through the sermon. How wonderful God is. Yes, yes, yes. He's very pitiful and of tender mercy. And that's all they focus on, just the sheep clothing, the outer veneer. They never unzip that zipper of the costume to see what kind of scoundrel lurks beneath that thin veneer. But anyway, here's another example of the thin veneer that Yahweh likes to wear to hide his ugly inner self. Lamentations 3, verse 33 says, "For he doth not afflict willingly, nor grieve the children of men." Oh, really? He doesn't afflict willingly, nor grieve the children of men. Remember that, because in a few moments, we're going to be looking at passages where he clearly does willingly afflict people, and he does grieve the children of men and takes great pleasure in it as well. 1 Chronicles 16:34 says, "For his mercy endures forever." Mercy? What mercy? As we will see in a moment. This is just a friggin' facade, ladies and gentlemen. It's a snow job, these verses we're reading now. This is just the sheep's clothing put over the ravenous beast. Ezekiel 18:32 says, this is the great Yah monster talking here, "I have no pleasure in the death of him that dies, says the Lord." Oh, sure you don't, you psychopathic, schizophrenic bastard. You take great pleasure in inflicting death, misery, and suffering, as we will see momentarily. Here's another one. Psalm 145:9. And keep in mind, once again, these are the kind of passages that Bible dupes like to focus on. They ignore the other ones, which far outweigh these, by the way. There's several more. I'm going to read them all. But don't think for one moment that these are in the majority. They're not. Only a small minority of passages portray this SOB as loving, tender, and dear, and kind, blah, blah, blah. The majority of passages in the Bible that talk about this monstrosity Do not betray him this way. The truth is, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to have most passages portraying him as a monster I mean, you don't have to have, you don't have to have most passages. You only need to have one, actually, that portrays him as a monster and have all the rest of them portray him as loving. And wouldn't that be enough to throw a wrench in the works? Wouldn't that be enough to show that, wait a minute, something isn't right here? I don't care that all of those other 999 passages show him to be loving. Why is this one passage here portraying him as the opposite? Something is definitely amiss. But no, folks, no. It's not even that there's, a few dozen passages. That would be troubling too. But no, the majority of passages that describe the actions and words ascribed to this deity are in the majority. The ones that portray him as loving and dear and compassionate are in the minority. That's extremely troubling now, isn't it? For Bible dupes, anyway. Psalm 145, verse 9 says, "The Lord is God to all, and his tender mercies are over all his works." His tender mercies. Oh, sounds so wonderful, doesn't it? And this is how they lure so many unsuspecting victims in. They lure them in with passages like this. And most Bible believers, that's all they ever read. They ignore the Old Testament. There's a few Bible believers that have actually read the whole Bible through and through. But again, they read it with tunnel vision. They ignore those overwhelming bulk passages that fly in the face of this interpretation. They just brush it aside. They come up with any number of excuses to try to explain them away. A lot of times they don't even bother trying to explain it away because they don't talk to other people about them. They just sweep them under the rug, ignore them, pretend they're not there. Oh, I don't understand that part of the Bible. I'm going to hurry up through this. I'll just hold my breath through these troubling sections here. Anyway, here's another one. 1 Timothy 2:4, Paul says, "Who," meaning God, "will have all men," or desires that all men will be saved and to come to a knowledge of the truth. Does he desire all men to be saved? Bull crap, as we'll see. 1 John 4:16, "God is love," a very famous passage, often cited in in Christian circles. God is love. He not only has love, supposedly, but he is love itself incarnated. Right. And the incarnation of love is the kind of individual that you would expect to be a fire-breathing dragon commanding to murder little babies, infants, suckling infants, sheep, cattle, goats, women, children, men, old men, young men, old women, young women, no discrimination of age or sex. Kill them all. Kill everything that breathes. That's just what you would expect to hear from the embodiment of love, wouldn't you? God is love. Look at the schizophrenia of this book. Is this not the same individual that Paul described as one who portrays himself as an angel of light, but is really an angel of darkness? Isn't that what Yahweh is? Of course it is. One who says he's loving one minute, but in the next breath is commanding mass murder of everyone, including suckling infants? It's the devil himself. Paul says the devil doesn't come to you with horns, fangs, and claws, at least not to most people, because most people will be turned off by that. There are some sick psychopathic bastards who love evil and will embrace it in its full ugliness. But most people, decent people anyway, would never do that. Right? That would scare them away. They would see this thing for what it was and they would run in the other direction. Paul says it's the devil that does that, but we see Yahweh does the same thing because Yahweh is the devil, of course. Obviously. Yahweh knows that most people would never accept him as the fire-breathing dragon that he is. And even though the Bible does portray him as a fire-breathing dragon, most Bible dupes do not focus on that. They just focus on these little pleasantries, which, had to be included to suck people in. The authors of that detestable book called the Bible, they've always known that most people would never accept their God the way he really is, the fire-breathing dragon. They also knew that most people would not require a book to have most passages portray him as a loving God and only a few here and there show him for the ugly monster that he is. They knew that they could actually have most of that book talk about him for what he really is as a monster, and that it only required a small, relatively, small amount of passages portraying him otherwise to lure people in. They knew that. They knew people would be suckers and would just focus on that small minority of passages. And to this day, it's still working, isn't it? Of course. Of course it is. Still works with most people. Most people just focus on the little small minority of passages, things they like to hear. Isn't that how people work across the board in every field? They want to believe their political leaders are out for their interests, so they'll ignore anything they hear to the contrary. And there's a hell of a lot to the contrary floating around today, if people are paying attention all over the internet. But no, they ignore that. They only focus on what they want to hear. The evening 6 o'clock news. I like to watch that because they don't talk about these crazy conspiracy theories that try to put my mind in the negative and get me to not trust my government, which I know is out to advocate what's in my best interest. Blah, 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 blah. So that's all they focus on. The BS. Because it's what they want to hear. They love to be bullcrapped. They love to be lied to. People love to be lied to. And the lies are the sweet sugar coating, right? That sweet sugar pill, the placebo. Yeah, just take this pure 100%, sucralose pill here, and it's going to cure your ailments. It's not going to do a damn thing except raise your blood sugar level. But because you're convinced it's going to help you, you take that pill and, you feel so good. And boy, that tastes so yummy. That's 99.9% of all people out there, folks. Love that fake frickin' sugar pill. Keep that truth away from me. Oh, that's bitter. I don't like it. It upsets my cozy little world. It wakes me up from my peaceful little slumber. I want to just go back to sleep and enjoy my pleasant nightmare, my pleasant little dreams. The stuff you're sharing with me is bitter and it's a nightmare. Yeah, the truth is a nightmare. It is. Only because we've been lied to for so long. It doesn't stay a nightmare, though. Once you swallow it and get past that bitter taste, once it settles in your stomach, it's life-giving. And now the lies you've been sold become the nightmare because you see them for what they are in all of their horror. So it is with Yahweh. You think he's a pleasant dream. Oh, it's so sweet. I want to drink in his holy word. It's a friggin' nightmare. That God is a beast from the pits of frickin' hell. Good and upright is the Lord, says Psalm 25:8. Okay, that's enough of the sheep's clothing. Now let's get down to the real nitty-gritty. Let's see this wolf for what it really is. Let's strip off the sheep's clothing. Enough of these glorious, glamorous passages. Let's look at the ones that Christians like to ignore, and these are in the majority. These are in the majority. Here's a most endearing one right here. This is Lamentations. This is Jeremiah 13, verse 14. It says, I will smash them. This is the great Yahweh, the great endearing, loving Yahweh, who is the embodiment of love. God is love. Listen to what the psycho bastard says here, again, in Jeremiah 13, verse 14. I will smash them one against the other, parents and children alike, declares the Lord. I will allow no pity or mercy or compassion to keep me from destroying them. Holy frickin' horse crap. Did you catch that? How do you like your God now? If there's any Bible dupes out there listening, and I highly doubt there is. Oh, no. They're not going to want to listen to somebody like me that's going to pull away the facade and expose that demon bastard for what he is. No. They're not going to listen. They can't handle the truth. They don't want the truth. They use that word all the time. They profess to love it, but they really don't. They really don't. What they love is the crap that they've been sold, and they love to call that crap the truth. They really don't love the truth, though. The moment they hear the truth, they run in the other direction. They will write you off. Even though they're told, to love their enemies and to reach out to all mankind, to spread the good news of the gospel, they will write you off and condemn your soul to hell, not because you've done anything evil to them, not because you've even said something that's wrong and can easily be proven wrong. You have simply said something that they don't want to hear and that they can't answer, and that makes them feel very uncomfortable. They only want to surround themselves with people who believe they're bull crap like them and can help to buttress their delusions, not expose them. Which is why I say once again, guys, Christians, for the most part, are very disingenuous, very insincere, and very phony. Outright phony. They really are. Most of them. They really are. So keep in mind, all the passages we just read, portraying Yahweh as a wonderful, harmless, benevolent creature, filled with love and mercy and compassion. This same deity says, I will smash them one against the other, parents and children alike, declares the Lord. I will allow no pity or mercy or compassion to keep me from destroying them. Oh, yeah, that's a loving God, all right, filled with love and mercy and compassion. Get over it, man. Get your head out of your hind parts, if you can, because the wedge is pretty far up there, Bible dupes. But, if you can get yourself an industrial strength gallon jug of Vaseline or something to lube up your head, hopefully you can twist it out of there. I don't even need to go any further, do I? Just having one verse like this in that book undoes everything good that's said about that bastard. I don't need to cite anymore. Oh, I got a hell of a lot more, and I'm going to cite them. But there's no need to. You only need to have one verse like this in the entire book. You can't have a loving God, a loving anything, talk like this. No way. Anything calling itself loving that turns around and talks like this is a lying bastard. And we already saw last week that he's a liar, right? He says, I will put a lying spirit. He loves lies. He only pretends to be against lies, just like he only pretends to be loving, but he's not loving. He's not against lies. He lies all the time. The whole book is filled with lies. In my book, What is Wrong with the Bible, thoroughly exposes that. Keep in mind, we just read a moment ago from Lamentations 3:33, which says, For he doth not afflict willingly, nor grieve the children of men. Really? He doesn't afflict willingly, nor grieve the children of men, when he himself says, I will smash them one against the other, parents and children alike. That's not afflicting willingly? That's not grieving the children of men when he says, I will tear them apart, smash them one against the other, children and parents alike? It doesn't get any clearer than this. You can't deny what you're hearing right now with your own ears. You can look this stuff up. I'm giving you the references. It's all here. And as always, request the notes. I'll send them to you. You can look it up yourself. It's there. I'm not some disgruntled former theology major who got fed up with the cult that screwed me over, and now I've got it in for them. And no. Long after I got screwed over by my theology professors, my entire church, I still remained a Bible dupe for another 10 years, 11 years, actually. I'm not waging war against this book and its phony religion and its phony God and its phony followers because I'm disgruntled. No, I'm doing it because I have found this book to be a fraud. Not just the religion, not just religious people and religious institutions. I found them out to be a fraud a long time ago, but I still trusted in this book. Now I have found that this book itself is a fraud. No wonder organized religion is a fraud. These big-name churches, the ministers, the church leaders, no wonder they all suck. Because the book, the religion, the God itself behind that book and that religion sucks. Took me forever to finally figure it out. It's a fraud, ladies and gentlemen. It's a fraud. You've been duped. Just like the government has duped you, the media has duped you, the educational establishment has duped you, the medical system has duped you. Religion has duped you too. And when I say religion, I'm talking about the Bible. Not just religious institutions that have spun off of the Bible and gone down, dark roads. And that's what a lot of Christians will say. When you point out the hypocrisy of this or that church or this or that religious person, they'll say, oh, well, that's just that person. That's just that church. Yeah, they're crazy with their... No. The whole freaking mess. Throw it all out. All right, guys.
Jewish professor Noel Ignatieff.
My concern is doing away with whiteness. Whiteness is a form of racial oppression, sure. The suggestion is that it is somehow possible to separate whiteness from oppression, and it is not. There can be no white race without the phenomenon of white supremacy. In the same way, if you abolish racial oppression, you do away with whiteness. Treason to whiteness is loyalty to humanity.
Your views are fairly well received in academia.
Yes, they're legitimate, not to say that everyone agrees, but sure. And the task is to bring this minority together in such a way that it makes it impossible for the legacy of whiteness to continue to reproduce itself.
I've had people ask me over the years, what do you think of this particular church or denomination, or what do you think of this particular doctrine, or their stance on this issue or that. I hope now you can understand why I say those questions are just totally moot. They're totally moot. It doesn't matter what one church thinks or what their doctrine is. The whole freaking mess is a fraud. Forget the whole damn thing. Recently I had one listener asking me about, Christian identity. And do you see why it doesn't matter? Whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventists, or Catholics, they all are full of crap. How could they not be? When their whole belief system is based on a book that's full of crap, a God that's full of crap. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Pick any denomination of your choice. They all suck. I don't care that you might like this or that pastor, the way he talks, and he seems so sincere. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay, if he's sincere, hooray, 3 giggles and cheers, whatever, for him personally. But it says nothing about the religion. The religion's a fraud. There are sincere people within that religion, yes. But I hope they wake up before that religion destroys them. I hope they wake up to realize they've been duped and that they're selling frickin' snake oil. Anyway, here's another one. Deuteronomy 7:16. Not only did Yahweh say he will personally dash them together, children and parents alike, I will tear them to pieces, but he also loved it when his minions, his chosen ones, did this on his behalf. Here he is talking in Deuteronomy 7:16, and he says, and thou shalt consume all the people which the Lord thy God shall deliver unto thee. Thine eye shall have no pity upon them. Oh, we see Yahweh saying he himself will have no pity when he goes out to destroy his enemies. And he also tells his minions to have no pity as well. The one who's supposed to be the embodiment of love and mercy is here saying, show no mercy, show no pity. When I tell you to go kill a whole city, babies, infants alike, do it. And yet he turns around and says, I don't afflict willingly. Oh, boy. The best you could say about this monstrosity is he needs some serious psychological help. He's bipolar. That's the best you can say about him. 1 Samuel 15:3 says, now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, the Amalekites, and spare them not, but slay both man and women, infant and suckling. Not just an infant, a baby under a year old, but a suckling who's still feeding off the mother's breast, fresh out of the womb. Oh, there's other passages where he says, rip up, or David says, to rip up the wombs of those with child, the pregnant women's wombs. Rip up their wombs. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? Just what you would expect from a follower of a loving God. Isn't it amazing that you could open up, a book by Aleister Crowley, for example, which is loaded with all kinds of demonic, evil filth, just like this. And, Christians vomit at the idea of even touching a book like that. Oh, that's evil. There's so much horrific, terrible things in there. What are you reading that for? Don't even touch that book. It's possessed of the devil. But yet they'll turn around and make love to the Bible that has the same kind of crap in it. How is this book any less detestable, pray tell? How is it any more acceptable? It's not just acceptable to them. Why, it's holy and righteous. Holy and righteous when it has garbage like this? 1 Samuel 6:19 says, because they had looked into the ark of the Lord, even he smote of the people 50,000 and 70 men. Just for looking into the ark, the Lord slayed 50,000 and 70. What's that, 90,000? Oh no, 50,000 and then not 70,000. 50,000 and 70. 50,000, 70. Over 50,000 people. Almost 51,000 people, according to this. Who knows how much truth there is to any of this crap, but nevertheless, Bible dupes want us to take this literal, so okay, fine, we'll take it literal. Your God is a literal SOB then. You want to take this literal. Fine, it's literal. Your God literally killed almost 51,000 people. And what was their horrific evil crime? They simply looked into the ark. You gotta laugh at this. It's so friggin' pathetic. On the one hand, it is laughable, but on the other hand, it's very sad because people really, really buy this. And they get upset with you for exposing this monstrosity. They call you a blasphemer for exposing this demon for what he is. Oh, man, can you get more duped than that? Is there any better example of just how sad a person can be brought down to the lowest level of ignorance to accept something as holy when clearly it's anything but holy? The antithesis of holy, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. But, wholesome, good, righteous. 1 Samuel 6:19 says, I just read that one, sorry. My cursor past that. Deuteronomy 4:24 says, the Lord thy God is a consuming fire. Consuming fire. Proverbs, again, that's ironic, isn't it? Because people associate the devil with the one who's going to burn you in hell one day. You got to love that. Got to love that. That actually isn't even in the Bible, by the way. As screwed up as the Bible is, it doesn't even teach that idea. That there's this burning place called hell, which is going on right now, and somehow the devil, who's supposed to be burning there as well, is in charge of the place and apparently having a good time burning everybody. That's not even in there. Did you know that? The Bible says that Yahweh is the one that's going to condemn sinners to burning flames, including the devil himself one day. But we know how that really works, don't we? There is no other being aside from Yahweh called the devil. Yahweh is the devil. Remember what Jesus said? Fear not those who can destroy the body, but fear instead him who can destroy both body and soul in hell. He's talking about his wonderful Dada Satan or Dada Yahweh, that he has the power to condemn your soul and your body to hell. He's the one who has control over the big furnace that's going to roast everybody that doesn't lick his hind parts, including those who have the audacity to look into the ark, or Uzzah, who reached out to grab the ark and stop it from hitting the ground, and zap! Now we killed him dead right there on the spot, because he's a loving God, of course. Proverbs 1, starting with verse 26, has this to say. This is Yahweh talking again, the devil. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear comes. I'll mock you when your fear comes. I will laugh at your calamity. When your fear comes as desolation and your destruction comes as a whirlwind. when distress and anguish come upon you. He's going to take pleasure in it. Didn't we just read a moment ago where it says, oh, the Lord does not afflict willingly. He doesn't take pleasure in the man's anguish. Oh, he doesn't? Really? Then shall they call upon me, says Yahweh, but I will not answer when affliction comes their way. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me, for that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. Wow, that takes on a whole new meaning now, doesn't it? They didn't choose to fear me. They weren't afraid of me, even though I breathed my dragon breath on them. They didn't fear me. So now I'm not going to have any pity. I'm going to send misery and suffering their way willingly, even though elsewhere in my holy book it says I don't inflict willingly. I'm going to inflict suffering willingly because you didn't fear me and you didn't choose knowledge. What knowledge? Knowledge that he needs to be worshipped and praised in spite of the fact that he's an evil bastard? There's another passage where the great Yah monster says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Imagine that. Destroys them for a lack of knowledge. A lack of knowledge doesn't necessarily imply rejection of him. It could just simply mean ignorance of him or ignorance of his ways. He's going to destroy them for lack of knowledge. Oh, so if you're ignorant, he's still going to take you down? What a bastard. What an evil bastard. I'm waiting for a Bible dupe to call me up and prove me wrong. Don't even think of calling me to name call. That's all they ever do. You're evil. You're going to hell. Now, they can't debate. They can't. Which is why they never call. They know they can't debate. They can't defend this piece of frickin' filth. They know they can't. All they can do is talk behind your back amongst themselves, attack you, name call, spread gossip, blah, 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 blah. I've seen it so many times over the years, folks. That's all you get from them. Their talk of love it's just rhetoric for the most part. Like I said, there are some exceptions. Oh, yes. I know a few that are exceptions. My mother was an exception, but I still know a few that are exceptions. I have nothing but respect for them. I don't respect their religion, but I respect them, and I feel bad that they're getting sucked in by this abominable filth because they're not the evil scum that Yahweh and his real true minions are. They're not. They're not. They're the antithesis of that. And if they only knew what they were following. Oh my God, if they only knew. Yahweh goes on to say, these who rejected him and who he now takes pleasure in watching them suffer, they would heed none of my counsel. They despised all of my reproof. Well, of course they're going to despise you and not heed your counsel. Your counsel is BS. You're an evil bastard. Why would they? In their right mind and armed with an understanding of what you're all about, you evil little bastard. Why would they follow anything you had to say? Here's another one. Psalm 2, verses 1 to 4. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. Anyone who dares question the almighty monster in the sky, Yahweh is going to laugh at them and hold them in derision. Only a psychopath would do this, folks. The Bible claims that we're all supposed to be God's children, right? Whether we accept him or reject him, we're all supposed to be his children. So does this sound like a loving dada who's going to take pleasure in the suffering of what is supposed to be his children, even though they're rebellious children. He's going to take pleasure in it. If he truly was loving and he had to destroy sinners because they're only going to bring nothing but discord to the universe, and the universe can't live in peace as long as there's evil sinners, if he has to destroy them, he's not going to do it out of pleasure, and he's not going to laugh, right? They're still supposed to be his loving children, but he's going to be crying all the way in the process of their destruction, isn't he? He's going to take pleasure in it, says this book. That's a psychopath. That's not a God of love. Very rare are the exceptions to this rule where a parent is going to take pleasure in the death of his or her son or daughter. Even the most hardened criminals, for the most part, their parents are not going to take pleasure in the death of their kids, are they? No. I've seen parents say, you know what? I hate what my kid did. I don't understand why he did it, but I still love him. And as long as he's still alive and breathing, I'm going to go visit him in jail. He's on death row. I'm going to cry the day that they put him to death. But you know what? Unfortunately, he has to pay for what he did. What he did is horrible. He's ruined many people's lives. You know, he does deserve the death penalty, but I still love him. You know what I mean? That's what a true loving parent would do or say, you know. But this is supposed to be Yahweh, the embodiment of love, and he's going to take pleasure. Think about that. Is that a God of love? I don't care what the crimes are of the individuals he's talking about here. Even the most heinous criminals. This is supposed to be the embodiment of love. How could the embodiment of love say he's going to take pleasure? Get the hell out of here. Your God is not a loving God. He's a frickin' monster. Will you face reality once and for all? Will you at least admit to yourself that you've been duped? A lot of them, they can never come around to admitting to other people simply because, you know, that's going to ruin their pride, right? To admit that, oh my God, all these years I've been calling people around me sinners bound for hell. And now it turns out I've been following the very devil that I accuse them of following. A lot of times it's pride. But can't you at least admit to yourself that you've been wrong? How the hell can you possibly say that you're not wrong in your assessment of this evil monster? How can you still lay claim to the delusion that your God is loving? There's something wrong with you. After hearing these passages, if you still want to cling to this thing, you scare the hell out of me. Please don't come within 100 miles of me. I don't want people like you near me. You're just as dangerous as the ones who openly worship Satan and go to black masses, and you might as well join them. You have the same goddamn mentality they do. They defend their Satan the way you do. Oh, a lot of people. How many times have you heard this from Satanists? If you've ever listened to Michael Aquino, for example, or, you know, Anton LaVey, the stuff he used to write, they defend their devil. They say he's the most misunderstood entity in the history of humanity. He's not the evil monster he's been made out to be. Oh, yes, he is. So is Yahweh, who is the devil himself. But he's misunderstood in the opposite way. He's misunderstood to be loving, and he's not. Understood in the opposite way the devil worshippers want you to think. You know what I mean? They want you to think he's misunderstood, but he really isn't. Yes, the devil is evil. And yes, Yahweh is evil because he is the devil. Unfortunately, so many people misunderstand him to think that he's good. He's not. He's not. Don't give me those few passages like the ones we read, you know, earlier on at the beginning of the show, where he's loving and compassionate, blah, 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 blah. It's all crap. It's all crap. Out the window they go when you read passages like the ones we're reading, which, again, far outweigh those relatively few in number. But it doesn't matter, does it? You only need one passage like this in that entire book, and it throws, you know, the wrench in the works right there. All the while that Yahweh says he will laugh at the suffering of the heathen. Look what Solomon told his readers in Proverbs 24:17. Rejoice not when thine enemy falleth, and let not thy heart be glad when he stumbles. Here's Solomon telling human beings not to laugh when their enemies stumble, right? And not to be glad, not to rejoice when they fall. But yet Yahweh himself says, I will laugh at your calamity. I shall hold them in derision. Absolutely incredible, isn't it? So, do you still think Yahweh is loving? Are you even remotely open to the possibility that he's loving? If so, once again, please get yourself some help. You're not able to think clearly. Something is definitely wrong with your neurological functioning capacity. You either need to change your diet, get some more exercise, or I don't know, maybe you need some brain surgery or something, but there's something wrong if you can't see that this evil bastard is not righteous. The devil is thought to be the author of evil, of course. But little do Yahweh fans realize that the Bible actually credits Yahweh with this achievement as well. For example, Isaiah 45:7. Feast your ears on this one. This is Yahweh talking here. I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity. I bring prosperity and create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things. Are you freaking kidding me? He brings prosperity and disaster? He forms the light and creates darkness? And Christians, get upset with occultists or New Agers or, Kabbalists or whatever, because they talk about you got to have a balance, the yin and the yang, the good with the bad, the good and the evil together. They get all upset with that, but yet here's their God talking that way. Their God is the creator of evil as well as good, darkness as well as light. This is your ultimate yin-yang. Yahweh is a Kabbalist. How does that grab you, Bible dupes? Yahweh is an occultist. Oh, wow. If there's an afterlife, I can see him up there puffing on cigars with Aleister Crowley and probably Manly P. Hall and Albert Pike and the rest of them. Madame Blavatsky is probably there too. They're having a grand old time, laughing at how many people worship him as a loving God. Here's another one. Lamentations 3, verse 38. Out of the mouth of the Most High proceeds not evil and good? The question is asked. In other words, aren't you aware that out of the mouth of the Most High, meaning Yahweh, both evil and good proceeds? Wow. So there you have it, guys. He talks good, right? Haven't we just seen examples where he talks good? The Lord is loving and just and compassionate and merciful, blah, 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 blah. But he also talks evil, doesn't he? Can you claim to be 100% good when you talk evil and commit evil acts? Bible dupes would have you believe that that's possible. It's not, ladies and gentlemen. You can't commit evil things and yet be good. Jesus himself said, a bad tree cannot bring forth good fruit, and a good tree cannot bring forth bad fruit. Obviously, Yahweh is not a good tree then, is he? If he's bearing bad fruit. If he delivers light and darkness, speaks lies and truth, commits evil and good, he's not good, is he? Jeremiah 18:11 says, "Thus says the Lord, behold, I frame evil against you and devise a device against you." I frame evil against you. Only something evil can frame evil. Again, quoting Jesus. A bad tree, if a bad tree can't bring good fruit and a good tree can't bring bad fruit, then bad fruit must come from a bad tree and good fruit from a good tree, right? If bad fruit is coming from the monster, he has to be bad. You don't get bad and good from good. You only get bad from bad and good from good, right? Christians are the first ones to say, there's no gray. Everything is black and white. Oh, how many times I've heard that? Okay, fine. There's no black. There's no gray. It's only black and white. Then your deity is black, isn't it? Your deity is evil. Because by his own mouth, he professes to be the author of good and evil. Anyway, Amos 3, verse 6. Shall there be an evil in the city, and the Lord hath not done it? Notice it doesn't say, shall there be an evil done in the city, and the devil isn't behind it? No, it doesn't say the devil. It says Yahweh, which, again, it's the same thing. It's kind of redundant, but you understand my point. The credit for evil coming about in a given city is not given to one called the devil, which is supposed to be the antithesis of Yahweh. No, the credit is being given to the Yah monster. And why? Because he creates evil by his own admission. He is the source, the fountainhead of evil. He's the devil himself. So, this passage doesn't have to ask, if evil comes about in the city, is the devil behind it? Doesn't have to ask that, because by saying the Lord or Yahweh is behind it, it's the same thing. Here's another one. Micah 1:12. Do you see how many passages there are like this, Bible dupes? It would be impossible to explain just one like this away, but oh, there are so very many of them. Anyway, we'll read Micah 1:12 when we get back, guys. Stay with us.
Falling on hard times? Need cash? Sick of waiting tables? Here at the Guiliani School of Drama, we can make all your hopes and dreams come true. Sign up for our 33-week course and we will teach you how to laugh mid-sentence when describing how your friend was blown into 6 million pieces, how to move too soon before any shots or explosions are even heard, the lost art of driving into people but having your truck stay nice and clean, the correct posture when crouching over a dummy so your ID card doesn't cause neck strain. Sign up today and we guarantee weekly acting jobs with the CIA, FEMA, MI5, even Mossad. Scholarships and bursaries available for war veteran amputees and illegal immigrants. Guiliani School of Drama. We even supply the tomato sauce and dead chickens.
Blinded by the light, wrapped up like a douche, another runner in the night. Blinded by the light, wrapped up like a douche, another runner in the night. Blinded by the light.
Renegade Broadcasting. Hard-hitting talk radio.
All right, so here it is, Micah 1:12. It says, evil came down from the Lord unto the gate of Jerusalem. Evil came down from where? From the Lord. Yeah, monster. Evil didn't come from this supposed separate entity from Yahweh called the devil. It came down from Yahweh himself. Who is the devil? Read a passage a moment ago where it talks about Yahweh creating light and darkness, right? Well, we're told that Yahweh dwells in darkness. Now, that's interesting because, most Bible believers associate Yahweh with the light, right? And there certainly are some passages that talk about him, dwelling in the light, and you can't even look at him because the brightness will blind you. But there are also passages that talk about him dwelling in thick darkness. Well, it only makes sense, right? If he's the author of evil and good, he's going to have light and darkness, isn't he? The great yin-yang in the sky. Well, here it is. 1 Kings 8:12, for example, says, the Lord said he would dwell in thick darkness. Psalm 18, verse 11 says, he made darkness his secret place. Psalm 97 verse 2 says, clouds and darkness are round about him. Well, what do you know about that? The parallels between Satan and Yahweh are actually too numerous and precise for one to deny them. And you can't even cite them all. There's just too many. It would take, 2 months to cover it with 2 hours a week or 4 hours a week shows. But anyway, these parallels are so precise and so numerous that there is no way to avoid the conclusion that if there is a devil, his name is Yahweh. That's it. What is so sad, though, once again, is that Christians esteem Yahweh as the antithesis of, and thus the antidote for Satan and evil. Oh, he's not the antidote. He's the problem. He's the problem. They couldn't possibly be more wrong. My heart just grieves to the bone when I watch YouTube videos. I don't watch too many of them, but here and there I'll peruse YouTube once in a while. I get some good ideas off there sometimes. But most of the time I get stuff sent to me, from listeners. And there's several people on there that produce some really good stuff. But, they're Christians, so of course you got to grit your teeth here and there. Fortunately, most of them aren't really that preachy, which is good, but they do get that little plug in there for the Yah Monster every once in a while. And it just, it just makes me sick to my stomach to think about it. These guys are producing some really good stuff. And, I'm sure they're sincere. I don't question their sincerity. But when they plug that bastard. Oh, if they only knew. He's not the answer to the world's problems. God almighty, you couldn't possibly be any further at the end of the other end of the stick on that one. You're on the wrong side of the coin, the total opposite side of the coin of where you should be. It's sad. It's sad to see them thinking that this evil demon is, the antithesis of what they think is the demon that runs this world. He is the demon that runs this world. Anyway, ironically, Paul called Satan the god of this world in 2 Corinthians 4:4. And he said that Satan has blinded the minds of those who do not believe. But isn't it interesting that Paul called Satan the god of this world? Doesn't there seem to be a problem there? Because as a Bible believer, you're supposed to believe that the ultimate authority in this world is Yahweh. He's supposed to be the Almighty, right? He's supposed to have more power than the devil. The devil doesn't rule this world. He might have corrupted it with evil, but ultimately, Christians are supposed to believe that God is still in charge, right? He's the good guy is in charge. And yet Paul says the devil is the god of this world. Well, I agree with Paul. The devil is the god of this world, and his name is Yahweh. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why it's so evil, folks. It's run by that demonic entity and his little minions, the tribe. And again, even if you don't believe that there's an actual entity called Yahweh, it doesn't matter. They believe it, and they're conducting themselves accordingly. So it might as well be real. Anyway, here's how this passage reads, 2 Corinthians 4:4. In whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Jesus, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. Do notice how Paul refers to Jesus as the image of God. We're going to get back to that later, but keep that in the back of your mind as we continue on exposing the evils of the great Yah monster. Jesus is credited with being the express image of God's person, the very image of God. That should send shivers up your spine if you're a Christian and you're now, for the first time, coming to see Yahweh for what he really is. Because, a lot of Christians out there actually admit, yeah, I don't like the Old Testament. I avoid it. That Old Testament deity is pretty nasty. I don't know how that came about, but I like Jesus. Jesus talks a lot more lovingly. But your great Jesus that you only think is so much more loving actually is said to be the mirror image reflection of this demonic deity called Yahweh. As we'll see later, Jesus himself said, I and the Father are one. He that has seen me has seen the Father. And of course, the Father there he's talking about is the Yah monster. We're one, he says. He that has seen me has seen the Father, because we're exactly alike. I'm the carbon copy of him. And it gets worse than that, as we'll see. I don't want to get ahead of myself. We'll get to him later. But if you're a Christian tuning in thinking that, well, so far he hasn't said anything that troubles me because he's just talking about the Old Testament and I don't really follow that. I follow the New Testament. I got some very bad news for you. Your Jesus is no better than this demon bastard called Yahweh, by his own admission. Anyway, Paul also said that it is Yahweh himself, supposedly the God of this world, and the entire universe for that matter, who blinds the non-believer. Please remember, we just read where Paul said that the devil blinds the non-believer, right? The God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not. But now look what he says in 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 11 and 12. And for this cause God shall send them, the wicked, shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth. Well, wait a minute. First, Paul says that it's the devil who blinds the wicked, right? Now he says that God is the one who does this. God sends them strong delusion. God blinds the wicked. This would seem like a contradiction, but it actually isn't. For Paul to say that the devil blinds the minds of the wicked and that God blinds the minds of the wicked is not a contradiction at all once you realize that God and the devil are one and the same. Paul's not contradicting himself. Oh, he contradicts himself in many other places, but not here. No, I will argue there's no contradiction at all. Paul is perfectly consistent because Yahweh is the devil. Over and over, we see both Yahweh and Satan fulfilling the exact same roles. We've already seen many examples of this, but many more to come. It's only fitting, therefore, that the real Hebrew meaning of the name Yahweh or Jehovah implies an evil deity. Did you know that? Last week, when we began this discussion, we talked about how the name Yah or various forms of that, from one culture to the next around the world, all carry the meaning of something evil, right? Well, it turns out that the very Hebrew word Yahweh itself carries the connotation of an evil deity. In Hebrew, Jah or Jah, J-E-J-A-H or J-E-H, or Y-E, Y-A-H or Y-E-H, whichever, when you transliterate it. They carry the meaning of Lord or God, while Hova means calamity or ruin. So when you put the two together, Jehovah or Yahovah, you get God of calamity or God of ruin. How do you like that? How do you like that? Indeed, Yahweh's words and actions all throughout the Bible epitomize calamity and ruin. He is the God of calamity and ruin. Absolutely. There are the many forms of calamity and ruin that we see Yahweh advocating in the Old Testament, and in the New too, but mostly in the Old, is human sacrifice. Something that Bible dupes associate with Satan, but never with Yahweh. But the truth is, the Old Testament is loaded with examples of Yahweh advocating and even commanding human sacrifice. By the way, we got the same thing in the New Testament. Jesus is the ultimate human sacrifice, isn't he? Yes, yes. And the way Christians understand certain passages in the Old Testament, it reveals that Yahweh took pleasure in him being offered up as a human sacrifice. It pleased the Lord to bruise him, we're told in the Old Testament. Strike the shepherd is supposedly Yahweh talking, referring to Christ being struck, and beaten leading up to his crucifixion. That he took pleasure in it. It pleased the Lord to bruise him. Imagine that. Christians read passages like that and apply that to Yahweh, referring to pleasure he took in his son supposedly dying on the cross for our sins. What a psychopath. Now, again, that's just the way they interpret those passages, but it doesn't matter. Studying the Old Testament reveals that Yahweh has the character to talk that way. Yes, absolutely. Psycho. In Exodus 22:29, speaking of human sacrifice, Yahweh commanded that all firstborn sons be consecrated to himself. This passage states, "Thou shalt not delay to offer the first of thy ripe fruits and of thy liquors. The firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give unto me." So far, this seems benign, harmless, right? Yahweh is simply saying, I want you to dedicate your firstborn sons to me. Okay, well, that could just mean he wanted them to become priests or, serve in some capacity, in a religious manner. But no, examining this not-so-holy book a little more closely reveals something else entirely going on here. Let's look at what Exodus 13:2 says. Consecrate to me every firstborn. So far, so good. This sounds like the passage we just read, right? But now the Yah monster is going to elaborate a little further on exactly what he means by this consecration of the firstborn to him. Consecrate to me every firstborn that opens the womb among the Israelites, both man and beast, for it belongs to me. So now he's making it a little more clear what he means now. He wants the firstborn dedicated to himself because he claims ownership of them. They belong to me to do with what I please. And what exactly were his intentions in claiming the firstborn? What did he want done with the firstborn where he claimed ownership of them? Now it gets very interesting. Are you sitting down, Bible dupes? Might want to prop a pillow under your head because this is going to be a real shocker. Leviticus 27. I'm amazed to see how many Bible dupes who read their Bible for years and years and years must have read this at some point, but it never registered with them. And they were shocked when I said, no, the Bible doesn't say, God doesn't say that he desired human sacrifice. Oh, yes, he did. Here it is. I don't ever want to hear again, any Bible dupes out there listening now, that only the evil pagan religions offered human sacrifice. But God in the Bible, God never, that's the one thing that distinguishes him from all those evil pagan deities. He never required. Bull crap, he didn't. Here it is. Leviticus 27, 28, 20, verses 28, 29. But nothing that a person owns and devotes to the Lord, which is the firstborn, right? Amongst other things. Nothing that a person devotes to the Lord, whether a human being or an animal or family land, may be sold or redeemed. Everything so devoted is most holy to the Lord. No person devoted to destruction may be ransomed. They are to be put to death. Here it is, right there, Bible dupes. How do you like your God now? Are you going to tell me that your wonderful God of love is holy and just and righteous? Are you going to tell me that he doesn't embrace evil when he says that he does? Are you going to tell me that he's against human sacrifice when you just heard it right here, where he not only endorses it, he commands it? The firstborn are to be reserved for me. They don't belong to you, he says. They are reserved for death, for destruction. They are to be put to death. They are not to be ransomed. You cannot free them from this commitment of being put to death for me, for human sacrifice. Do recall the admission that Yahweh made in Ezekiel 20, verses 25 and 26, which echoes this same passage we just read. So I, Yahweh, gave them, the Israelites, other statutes that were not good and laws through which they would not live, meaning laws that required them to be put to death, right? I defiled them through their gifts, the sacrifice of every firstborn, that I might fill them with horror, so that they would know that I am the Lord. So what he's saying here is, I gave them these horrible statutes that were not good, like sacrificing their firstborn to me, so that they would be afraid of me, so that they would know that I am the Lord, the big man on campus. I filled them with horror, so that they would know that I am the Lord. Holy crap. This deity delights in filling people with horror, so that he'll put fear in you, so that you'll do whatever he says without questioning it. which includes sacrificing the firstborn. There it is. There it is. It's undeniable. It's unavoidable. You can't weasel out of it, my dearly deluded Bible fans out there. Surely none of which are listening right now. But just in case in the future someone goes into the archives and somebody ties them up and forces them to listen, that's the only way they would listen. So just in case one of you out there does catch this show, you cannot deny it anymore. You have no excuse anymore for worshiping that monstrosity and defending that SOB in the sky. You have no excuse anymore. You've heard it right from his so-called holy word, right from his so-called holy mouth. He admits it himself that he's behind the evils of this world. You're going to tell me he's not the devil? Go ahead, I dare you. I dare to even try. Oh, there are many examples more of human sacrifice, not just of him commanding it, but actual human sacrifices being carried out in the Yah monster's name. For example, Deuteronomy 13, verses 13 to 19. Feast your ears on this one. Suppose ye hear in one of the towns that the Lord your God is giving you, i.e., that has you go in and invade militarily and slaughter everybody and then steal their land. Suppose you hear in one of the towns the Lord has given you that some worthless rabble among you have led their fellow citizens astray by encouraging them to worship foreign gods. In such cases, you must I got to stop right there before I even continue. Guys, you know what this makes me think of? The reason why the tribal-controlled U.S. government has invaded so many third-world countries over the years that didn't pose a threat and couldn't possibly have posed a threat to this country militarily. They didn't invade them because they posed a military threat. They invaded them, well, A, because they had rich resources they wanted to steal. But even more than that, guys, they invaded them because these countries were prosperous. And if the onlooking world could see that these third world countries could live prosperously, that don't have a central bank, that makes their phony system look bad, doesn't it? So they had to wipe them out for that reason alone, so that their corrupt monstrosity of a system could continue to look good without another example that outdid them, that didn't depend on their fraudulent fiat currency. Do you see what I'm saying? And this is why the Yah monster said to kill other cities that worshipped other gods, because these other gods very often were not tyrannical. They weren't fire-breathing dragons. You know, guys, I did a show a while back on how the Canaanites, they didn't, the Phoenicians, they weren't worshiping fire-breathing dragon gods, and they didn't practice human sacrifice either. That's a lie that we find in the Bible. And I actually cited an article that was in Biblical Archaeology Review magazine that pointed that out, interestingly enough. A biblically based frickin' magazine article was the one that first brought that to my attention, that the Bible is incorrect when it says that the Phoenicians, offered sacrifice, human sacrifice. They didn't. That same article pointed out, however, that there is archaeological evidence to show that the Hebrews were offering human sacrifice. Of course, you can even find that in the Bible. A great many Hebrews were offering their children to Moloch in the fire. Yahweh was against that, but he didn't have any problem with them offering their firstborn to himself. He was all for human sacrifice as long as it was sacrificed to him. He wasn't opposed to human sacrifice. He was opposed to human sacrifice to other gods. And he wanted the worshipers of other gods to be killed because he didn't want people to see that there were other gods out there that were far better than he was. Benevolent gods, not fire-breathing dragons that instilled fear. When you have to snuff out your competition, you've got something to hide, folks. That's all there is to it. Competition is going to make you look bad. So you got to kill them so you can continue to foster the delusion successfully that you're good. Anyway, you must examine the facts, Yahweh says, carefully. If you find that it is true and can prove that such a detestable act has occurred among you, that a fellow tribe member is worshiping another god, you must attack that town and completely destroy all its inhabitants, together with all the livestock. In this case, he's talking about a town that the Lord gave them that's supposed to be under their thumb now. And if you find out that one of the towns under your thumb isn't worshiping me like they've been commanded to do, or I'll destroy you type of thing, if you find out that it's true, investigate it. If you find out it's true, you must destroy the entire town, he says, including the livestock. Again, doesn't it sound like how our military operates, guys? And can you expect any better? Look who controls this whole country. Who controls our military, folks? Yahweh's minions. Anyway, it goes on to say, then you must pile all the plunder in the middle of the street and burn it. That's funny because on a lot of other occasions, Yahweh said to take the plunder. On this occasion, though, when they worship a false god, they're so evil, you're not to keep the plunder this time. Burn it in the middle of the street. But then he goes on to say this, put the entire town to the torch as a burnt offering to the Lord your God. There you go. Read it for yourself. Deuteronomy 13, starting with verse 13. Yahweh instructed the destruction of an entire city. Apparently, you only needed to have one or two people worshiping another evil god, unlike the loving, wonderful God Yahweh. And that would warrant killing the whole town, babies, animals, everything, and burning all of the booty, everything. Just burn it to a crisp, turn it to ashes, and do this as a burnt offering to the Lord thy God, said Yahweh. Not only see him commanding human sacrifice, we see it being carried out in his name. Yahweh was all for human sacrifice, ladies and gentlemen. No denying it anymore. Short break, right back.
Same old commercials on Renegade Broadcasting?
Ugh, I have heard this damn Noel Ignatieff clip 6 million times. I get it already.
Well, we need your help to create new, exciting, and enlightening content for our breaks. Find yourself a decent microphone or borrow one from somebody else. Look up some royalty-free music or let us do it for you. Just get creative. Make the commercials 40 seconds long to fit our schedule. Winners will have their commercials played on the air and also receive some great prizes. For more details, please go to renegadebroadcasting.com/contest.
right, guys? So, since Yahweh endorses and commands human sacrifice, we shouldn't be surprised to discover that he also endorses and embraces and commands cannibalism. Why not? It goes with the territory, right? In fact, no real devil's resume would be complete unless they endorsed and commanded cannibalism. Bible dupes would say, oh, no, my God, are you out of your mind? My God would never command something like that. Oh, guess again. Guess again. You shouldn't be surprised at this point, seeing that your God commanded human sacrifice. But nevertheless, in case there's any doubters out there, let's look at Yahweh now endorsing freaking cannibalism, ladies and gentlemen. Are you disgusted, as you rightly should be, hearing about what goes on in Hollywood at the, what's her name, Marina Abramovic's little spirit cooking gatherings, and hearing about snuff movie parties? If that stuff disgusts you, if you're a human being, you are going to be disgusted by it. But guess what? Your wonderful God in the clouds is also into cannibalism as well. So if you're disgusted by Hollywood, by government officials, on and on, engaging in cannibalistic practices, you damn well better also be disgusted by this fake God, this fake loving deity who also embraces cannibalism. Deuteronomy 28:53, for example, says, and by the way, there's numerous passages, not just one. You would only need one passage having Yahweh endorse cannibalism. That would be enough, right, to show that, wow, this thing is evil. But no, there's a great many of them, and I don't even cite them all here. I got quite a few of them here, but there's many more. But I just picked some of the better ones. Deuteronomy 28:53 says, because of the suffering of that your enemy will inflict on you during the siege, you will eat the fruit of the womb, the flesh of the sons and daughters the Lord your God has given you. You will eat the fruit of the womb of your enemies. You're going to eat the unborn, the fetus. The fetal tissue. You're going to eat the flesh of the fruit of the womb, it says. Can you believe this? The flesh of the sons and daughters of those that the Lord has given to you. You're going to eat that. This is freaking unbelievable. Here's another one. Ezekiel 5, verse 10. Therefore, the fathers shall eat the sons in the midst of thee, and the sons shall eat their fathers. This is freaking unbelievable. Jeremiah 19:9. Any doubt that Yahweh is the devil now? Jeremiah 19:9. And I, Yahweh, will cause them to eat the flesh of their sons and the flesh of their daughters, and they shall eat every one the flesh of his friend. Look how many times this same theme is repeated across the whole spectrum of New Testament books. Leviticus 26:29 says, you will eat the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters. Again, same wording. Isaiah 9, verses 19 and 20 says, by the wrath of the Lord Almighty, the land will be scorched, and the people will be fuel for the fire. They will not spare one another. On the right they will devour, but still be hungry. On the left they will eat, but not be satisfied. Each will feed on the flesh of their own offspring. Yahweh was into cannibalism, wasn't he? He got his little rocks off on it. Isaiah 49, verse 26 says, I will make your oppressors eat their own flesh. So on one occasion, he's telling the Israelites they're going to eat their own flesh if they don't do everything he says. And now in this case, he's saying your enemies are going to eat the flesh of their own sons and daughters. They will be drunk on their own blood as with wine. Then all mankind will know that I, the Lord, am your Savior, your Redeemer, the Mighty One of Jacob. They're going to know that I'm the big man on campus when I cause them to eat the flesh of their own, their own kind, is what he's saying. What a raging, freaking psychopath. Demonically evil psychopath. Lamentations 4, verse 10. The hands of the pitiful women have sodden their own children. They were their meat or their food. Their own children were their food. Look how he gets off on this. Whether it's him doing it or him commanding it or just being an observer sitting back and watching it, it doesn't matter. He gorges himself in this. He loves it. Exults in it. 2 Kings 6:28 and 29 says, this woman said unto me, give thy son that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son and did eat him. And I said unto her on the next day, give thy son that we may eat him also. Can you believe this slop is in this so-called holy book, ladies and gentlemen? This is something right out of frickin' Aleister Crowley's writings, isn't it? This is what you would expect to see in Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible, You actually will not find stuff like this in the Satanic Bible. I'm not saying it's a good book, no. But it doesn't even have crap like this in there, folks. And yet, here it is in the so-called Holy Book. Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible is evil, but the Holy Bible is good and holy. It doesn't have anything. It has more evil stuff in it than the so-called Satanic Bible does. This is the real Satanic Bible here, folks. Deuteronomy 28:57 says, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, that she gives birth to, and toward her children which she shall bear, for she shall eat them. She shall eat them. It doesn't even matter what the context is for this statement, guys. It's there. It's in there. This shouldn't be in a so-called holy book. Micah 3, verses 2 and 3 says, who pluck off their skin from off them, and their flesh from off their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people, and flay their skin from off them, and they break their bones, and chop them in pieces, and for the pot as flesh within the cauldron. In other words, you slice the flesh off, and then throw it in the cauldron to cook it and eat it. This is Yahweh talking here. I mean, if this doesn't make you want to freaking puke, how is this book any better than listening to little Miss Abramovic give a talk at one of her spirit cooking sessions? What the hell's the difference? This is the kind of stuff that goes on at satanic black masses. And here's Yahweh talking about it? Tell me he's not the devil now. Go ahead. Do it. I dare you. Bible believers often attribute war as a work of the devil, quote unquote. And sure enough, the Bible tells us that war is Yahweh's favorite pastime. Maybe, well, aside from watching human sacrifices and watching humans eat other humans. But this ranks up there, one of the top 10, no question. Exodus 15, verse 3 says, the Lord is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. Imagine that. Yahweh is a man of war. Well, of course he is. How many times do we have him telling his tribe to go invade this, that, and the other city, kill everything that breathes, blah, 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 blah. Women, children, men, women, old, young. In Isaiah 19, verse 2, Yahweh says, I will set the Egyptian against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. Yahweh got his little rocks off on war, didn't he? He loved pitting them against each other. And isn't that what his minions have always done, folks? How many wars have they instigated down through the centuries? How about every freaking one of them for the past 3,500 years? And have funded them too, of course. They're doing their God's bidding, are they not? Here's another quote from the great Yah monster. Ezekiel 35, verses 7 to 9 says, I, Yahweh, will make Mount Seir utterly desolate, killing off all who try to escape and any who return. I will fill your mountains with the dead. Your hills, your valleys, and your streams will be filled with people slaughtered by the sword. I will make you desolate forever. Your cities will never be rebuilt. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Here he repeats that same phrase again. With all the bloodshed I will help you inflict. Then you will know that I am the Lord. What will convince you that I am the Lord will be all the deaths you will see occurring around you that I will empower you to inflict in my name. Holy mother of Jesus H. Frickin'. Here's another quote from this demon bastard, Zephaniah 3, verse 6. I have destroyed nations. Their strongholds are demolished. I have left their streets deserted, with no one passing through them. Their cities are laid waste. They are deserted and empty. And again, we're supposed to believe that this bastard doesn't take pleasure in inflicting sorrow and misery. Remember we read that crap earlier? Oh, really? He doesn't now. Jeremiah 51, starting with verse 20, says, this is the great Yah monster again speaking to his chosen minions. You are my battle axe and sword, says the Lord. With you, I will shatter nations and destroy many kingdoms. With you, I will shatter armies, destroying the horse and the rider, the chariot and the charioteer. With you, I will shatter men and women, old people and children, young men and maidens. Excuse me. Can you believe this, guy? With you, I will shatter shepherds and flocks, farmers and oxen, captains and rulers. That doesn't leave anything out there now, does it? All inclusive. Yahweh is an equal opportunity destroyer. Men and women, children, even the cattle, the oxen, everything. I will shatter them. I will destroy them into little pieces. Guys, is Yahweh not Satan himself? You see why I get absolutely sick to my stomach when I listen to these YouTube videos and I hear, most likely sincere people. I think most of these YouTubers are very sincere, but yet so sincerely duped when they talk about this monstrosity, admitting that he gets his rocks off on misery and suffering, killing little children, requiring the firstborn to be sacrificed to him, on and on it goes. Getting off on human cannibalism. When I hear them talk about this same entity as loving and that he's the answer to the evils in this world, he's the source of the evils of this world. You just heard where we read earlier that he admits, that he boasts that he's the author of good and evil. He can't be the author of good, by the way, when he claims to be the author of evil. I hope you understand that. He wants you to think that he's dualistic, that he's good and evil. I have to be evil sometimes, yes, but I'm the author of good, too. I'm really a good God. I just do bad things once in a while, but it's really not bad. That's what Christians say, you know. Even when God does bad things, it's really not bad because, like the Jesuits say, the end justifies the means. How many Christians say that kind of philosophy exhibited by the Jesuits is evil, but yet they excuse Yahweh when he embraces it? That's the Yahwehyan philosophy, isn't it? The Jesuit philosophy of Ignatius Loyola, the end justifies the means, is Yahwehyan philosophy. Of course it is. When I command something evil, it's not evil because I command it, and because it's for a higher purpose. It's for a good purpose, so therefore, it's holy, just, and righteous, and if you question it, I'll zap you dead, along with the entire city I just commanded you to kill for me. I'll kill you dead too, damn it, and I'll take pleasure in it, even though I say I don't take pleasure in inflicting misery and suffering, because I'm a psychopathic, schizophrenic, evil bastard. Oh, Bible dupes, the hour has come. The hour has arrived to finally put this book in the same scrap heap that you have tossed El Governmente, the lying media, the lying education system. It's time to put this book there as well. You should have put this book there first, actually, because it's actually easier to expose this book than it is El Governmente. You got to search high and low, do some serious homework to see that El Governmente has been lying to you for decades on end, centuries on end. But you don't need to go very far to see that your wonderful holy book isn't so wonderful. It's been on your shelf all this time. Go brush the dust off it, because most Bible believers don't even actually read that book. Or if they do, they'll just read certain select passages. But they really don't read 99% of it. Go read the damn thing with a critical eye, and you won't believe how evil it is. You've never read it with a critical eye. That's why this stuff I'm reading is blowing you away right now if you're even listening. I didn't know that was in there. You know how many times I've heard Bible believers tell me that? Dedicated Christians who go to church every week. I've had them tell me, oh my good heavens, I didn't know that was in there. Really? Where is that? Show me. I have to show them because they don't believe it. And I'm all too happy to show them. And when I do, wow. Their jaw drops to the floor. But you know what, guys? Most of the time, guess what happens? I never hear from them again. They go to church the next Sunday with their Bible in hand, and they show these verses to their pastor. And you know what he tells them? Oh, I can see the devil is working on you. He's got your neighbor totally under his control. What you need to do is stay away from this guy. Yeah, you're right, Pastor. Whoa, I can't believe it. I need to repent. I've been questioning God. Yes, you do. You need to ask God for forgiveness that you listen to this person. That's what they're told to do, and that's what they do 99.9% of the time. That's what they do. So please understand, if you share these notes with Bible dupes, do understand, most likely, if you value their friendship, don't even bother. You'll never hear from them again. You won't. Because the hypocrites that they are, they only profess to love the truth. But when the truth finally comes their way, they'll run in the other direction. They want to be able to still condemn the other heathens and their heathen deities and still feel comfortable about their phony God being holy and just. When you show them that their God isn't holy and just, they don't want to hear it. So it's much easier for them to demonize you and avoid you and tell others to avoid you so they can still continue to believe their bullcrap. They don't want to let go of the lies, folks. They really don't. It's so freaking sad. Anyway, one particularly endearing feature of warfare, aside from the mass murder factor, is the act of plundering the defeated nation. Yahweh was into that too. We saw just a moment ago an example of where Yahweh told them to burn the plunder. I don't know, it just depends on the mood he was in that day or whether the coin he tossed came up heads or tails or not, whatever. But usually Yahweh told them to take the plunder and steal it for them, for themselves. Just like usually Yahweh said, kill everything that breathes, including, young virgins, young children. But there were some occasions where he said, keep the young virgins for yourselves. They shall be your booty, your little sex toys, your little playthings. So, it depended, again, whether the moon was lined up with Venus and what side the coin landed on when he tossed it. But here's an instance, or a few instances, where he actually told them to take the booty, which every time we've gone to war, isn't that what has been done, guys? Not only did we invade countries all during the, so-called Cold War and now the War on Terror, not only have we and do we continue to invade countries that have leaders that, we don't want to keep in power because they'll make us look bad, right? They're more prosperous than we are without a central bank. But also because they have a lot of booty. Conveniently, we like to invade countries that have a lot of oil, especially. Oh, sure, rich mineral resources and arable, rich croplands like Guatemala on behalf of, United Fruit Company back in the 1950s. But where did they get this idea from, guys? They got it from the great Ya Monster. His minions, who direct our government, is having us carry on the same tradition. Here's an example here from Exodus 3:22, for example. You will plunder the Egyptians, said Yahweh. Plunder the Egyptians. And if you read carefully the book of Exodus, you discover that's exactly what they did. As they left Egypt, they stole their gold. Joseph did it too, didn't he? Plundered the Egyptians, and then later we're told that after he invited all of his buddies to come and live in glory land there in Armana, they were living in great abundance while the Egyptians were living in great poverty, it says. Unbelievable. They stole the booty. Anyway, here's another passage like that. Exodus 12:35 and 36 says, the Israelites did as Moses instructed and asked the Egyptians, here's what I was just talking about. They asked the Egyptians for their silver and their gold for clothing. The Lord had made, they probably told them, can I just borrow that? I'll give it back to you tomorrow. Never intending to give it back, of course, because tomorrow was the day they were going to be taking off. Or, if you ask me, the day they were kicked out. Because the real story of the Exodus was, and I got another show coming up on that, by the way, very interesting. The Exodus was them getting their arses kicked out. But in any case, when they left, they took their gold. The Lord made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the Hebrew people, it said. And they gave them what they asked for. So they plundered the Egyptians. The Lord gave it into their heart to give over. What that means is, he inspired them how to deceive them, to give them a bunch of lying rhetoric so they would let them borrow their silver and gold, knowing that they were just going to steal it. He wanted them to steal it. He told them to steal it, and he told them how to do it. Use deception. How come this doesn't come under the banner of stealing, ladies and gentlemen? Did not they steal from the Egyptians? Of course they did. They plundered them at Yahweh's behest. Yahweh, the devil. Numbers 31 verse 9 says, the sons of Israel captured the women of Midian and their little ones and all their cattle and all their flocks and all their goods they plundered. Look at this, guys. Look at this. And Yahweh was oh so proud of them. They did what he wanted. Took it all. Took their women to rape them. They took their little ones to rape them too and enslave them. They took their cattle, their flocks, all of their goods they plundered. Deuteronomy 20 verse 14 says, wait a minute, I just read that. No, I guess, did I take this? Did I already read this one? The women and the children and the animals and all that is in the city, all is spoiled. No, I didn't read this one. It sounds similar to the one I just read. No, this is another example is Deuteronomy 20, verse 14. The women and the children and the animals and all that is in the city, all its spoil, you shall take as booty for yourself and you shall use the spoil of your enemies, which the Lord your God has given you. So again, he's commanding them to steal. Here's another one, Joshua 6:24. On and on it goes. Then they, the Israelites, burned the whole city, meaning Jericho, and everything in it, but they put the silver and the gold and the articles of bronze and iron into the treasury of the Lord's house, his tabernacle. They stole everything, and this time Yahweh wanted it for himself, or his little holy tabernacle. 1 Samuel 17:53 says, the sons of Israel returned from chasing the Philistines and plundered their camps. You know, I'm not even going to read all of these because it'll take forever and a day, and it's not necessary. You already got the point, but it just goes on and on. There's quite a few more of these. 1 Samuel 27:9, 2 Samuel 3:22, 2 Chronicles 14:13, and 2 Chronicles 20:25 are some more examples that I cite. But you got the point. Plunder, plunder, plunder. Kill, kill, kill. Engage in rape, murder, cannibalism. And you're going to tell me, once again, that this is a loving God, right? Get the hell out of town. Anyway, I didn't think I would get to it tonight. Tomorrow, the real cream of the crop now, the real cherry on top. It's not enough to expose the Yah monster as the devil himself. We need to take a look at what I like to call Yahweh Jr., the spawn of Satan, as the Bible calls it. Well, I mean, it calls him Yahweh's spawn, right? His son. But since Yahweh is Satan, we have to conclude that he's the spawn of Satan. But let's not just draw that conclusion based on inferences, shall we? Tomorrow, we're going to look at the evidence that, yes, indeed, he's not just the son of Satan by default. He's the son of Satan in every conceivable way because he has the same disposition, the same attitude, the same set of moral standards. I don't care that he talked more benevolently, love your neighbor, blah, 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 blah. Again, it's all rhetoric, just like Yahweh on occasion seems to talk lovingly, but it's all rhetoric when you look a little closer. We're going to look at Jesus, Satan Jr. tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. All right, folks, have a great day. We'll see you then. Take care.
Ever gives us one side of World War II. They don't want us to know the real history of what happened over 70 years ago, seeing through the eyes of the German victims. The horror of the terror bombing, the mass rape of millions of women and children, the torture and murder of civilians, the death camps for surrendered soldiers, the ethnic cleansing of whole countries, and the planned extermination of the entirety of the German people. After watching Hellstorm, you'll never see the good war and the good guys in the same light ever again. Watch for free and get DVDs at hellstormdocumentary.com.